Okay guys, this is one of my favorite styles. This is the Georgian style. From the 1700s through about 1830, and then there were some revival periods after that. Actually, it's still a pretty popular design today because of the fact that it has a little bit of ornamentation, a little bit of detail, but the overall form and the mass of the house is relatively simple. Some of the features of the house is that the windows are typically divided lights, fairly large double hung windows, which means that the bottom goes up and the top will go down. Therefore they're double hung. The lights are divided, so there's actually muttons or mullions within the windows that divide them into little panes of glass. And the front door typically has a little bit more ornamentation. It's a paneled door, and sometimes we'll have a transom window over that front door, and then we'll be decorated with some pilasters and a little bit of crown molding and detail around the actual entry. All the other features of the house are pretty minimal. It has a fairly steep slope that comes down to a shallow overhang, and there's a little bit of ornamentation below the eave in the cornice. You'll see some dentils, which is the bump in and out that you see on a lot of it's called a denticulated cornice. Generally is a pretty prominent chimney. Sometimes you see this chimney in the middle of the house in the ridge, and then sometimes you see this two chimneys flanking both gables. That actually, this is a prominent detail where the side goes up into the gable, and then the chimney continues up above that ridge there. So that's a pretty typical detail for the Georgian style, and actually goes into the next style, which is the Adams style that I'm going to talk about tomorrow. But this is one of my favorite styles just because it's simple, but it has some details that make it really interesting and unique as far as the front entry, being able to dress that up and add a little bit more interest to that, but also keeping the main mass of the house pretty simple and rectilinear. So now these houses were typically two-story, so a little bit larger massing than all the others that we've talked about so far. They typically sat out of the ground a little bit further as well. They had a fairly steep pitch to the roof. And the floor, the typically had some stairs going up to the front door, stood there, and so the floor level would generally be about here. And then this is what you see a lot with these style homes is one window above the front door, and then two windows beside that. So you have the 5 windows and then 4 windows down here. And sometimes these a little larger down. But they were double hung windows and typically had several, either 9 by 12 divided. Now the front door is what is most interesting with these, is they typically will have some kind of pilaster at the front. And a pilaster is just a recessed column. And then they might have like a window up here above the door, which was typically panelized, a panel door, and then above that was generally a little more detailed crown molding. So you have a little bit of detail over the door, and then actually underneath this little bit of overhang here was the denticulated cornice that you see quite often. So there's some detailed crown up underneath that, and then a lot of times, which you don't always see this. It's not a 100% indicator, but you sometimes see this detail where the chimney actually comes up as part of that wall there, and they're usually fairly wide chimneys. So this So these were 1700 to 1830.